We went over 10,000 subscribers, and that it's everything that I wanted from the start. Don't get me wrong, getting more subscribers is excellent, but reaching 10,000 is a milestone that is very meaningful for every YouTuber that's starting, at least in our niche. To celebrate that, I'm doing two things. One is to announce a remix contest, but we are not going to make that in this video. All the information for the contest is in this other video. Today I'm going to do the second thing that I wanted to make for the celebration, which is a simple Q&A which has a lot of interesting questions. So let's start. If you like this format of videos, please leave a comment so I can make another Q&A sometime later. So the first question is actually two questions because they are pretty similar. What artists inspire you to make music, and what music artists do you admire, and how they shape your own journey? So to answer that, I gotta say, the way I see music that inspires me, it's not dependent of an artist or whatever. I mean, there are songs that inspire me from artists that I don't even listen, but they have that one-hit wonder for me. It may not even be their most famous song, that has something that I really like and enjoy, and of course inspire me. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a fan of one genre of music. I'm one of those people that says that they listen to everything, and we mean everything. So let's start by the most obvious ones. For instance, Daft Punk. When I was little, I was fascinated by those video clips that were like anime, and Aerodynamic was one of my favorite songs. I think Aerodynamic was more impactful for me than the rest of Daft Punk music, but that doesn't mean that I didn't like all of the rest of the songs that they make. I even listened a lot of their latest album, from which I think Giorgio by Moroder is one of my favorites. Now, you know that I also have a lot of influences from the 80s, new wave, synth pop, synth wave, new romantics, and whatever else. And I gotta say that the most inspiring for me are New Order, of course. The Perfect Kiss is one of my favorite songs from them. And of course also Depeche Mode. But not only that, I also like a lot Duran Duran, The Cure, David Bowie, which is a little bit earlier, but it's from that era, and many other bands. Now, the love for electronic music and synthesizer especially were something newer in my life, because when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with rock and metal. And many bands on those genres really inspired me and shaped the way I see music. That's why I always use acoustic drum kits in my songs. For instance, I love Foo Fighters, at least the first half of Foo Fighters. I mean, the newest song that I listened by Foo Fighters was Pretender. So, of course, I also listened to all your typical things like Metallica, Iron Maiden, and whatnot. And even more older stuff like Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, the Rolling Stones. Everything that is like your typical rock from the 70s to today, it's something that I'm interested in. Even some rock that is more associated with pop, like pop punk. I mean, I listened a lot of Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Panic at the Disco, and so on. Now, completely the opposite from commercial radio music, I love Arvo Pärt. He, alongside Steve Reich, are my favorite composers from the 20th century, both in different ways. Arvo Pärt in the simplicity of music, where he takes care more of the textures and how each note makes you feel, and Steve Reich in how he composes. He can make something melodic sound very rhythmic, and I love that. Sorry for the long answer, let's go to the next question. How do you combat demotivation and writer's block? For me, there are two ways on which I combat writer's block and demotivation. One is to play with your instruments. That's one of the reasons of why I love to make presets, even if there are complex presets that I won't use on a song, because it's another mindset that still lets me be creative in a musical way, but I'm not concentrated on finishing a song. It's like playing music without a goal in mind. The other thing I tend to do is to think outside the box and do something completely different. I start even to change the structure and even the sounds of the song. Now there's a third thing that you can do, and it's to take a break. Simply walk away from the studio, work on other things, and even at the next day work on a different project. Because maybe you need some days, 3-4 days to rest, and then go back to that project with fresh ears and fresh ideas. Where do you think you'll go next? What do you want to achieve as an artist in the coming years? I have two main focus. One is myself as an artist. That means making music for me and for listeners to enjoy. I hope to grow my listener numbers and also to learn a lot more on how to be a good musician. And the other thing is to make a living out of this, not only as an artist, but also as, I don't know, a producer, a composer, a mixer, whatever you want. I mean, I also want to offer my services for other creative people that will need my services to finish their ideas. My dream will be to make the soundtrack for a video game or to produce an artist. I mean, to make the music for an artist to express themselves. Or to get the demos from those artists and make it into something better and bigger. Which are my favorite Bitwig devices, or the most used? Well, maybe it's a boring answer because the ones that I like to use the most are the simplest ones. For instance, Polysynth. Polysynth is my go-to synthesizer when I want a specific kind of sound because it's fast to set up, easy to use, and it sounds great. It just works. The same for Delay Plus or Delay 2, depending on which kind of delay I want. Now, a bit more complex is the amp, which is a great amp emulation, which can be used for many more things than just an amp. It's like a distortion playground. The Compressor Plus is one of the things that I'm using more and more lately. And finally, the Frequency Split is one of my favorite spectral effects, because the results that you can get are completely mental. Which ones are your top 3 favorite plugins? Oh my god. This one is hard to answer because I have more than 3 favorite plugins currently. And of course, plugins is very wide. It can be a synth, it can be an EQ or whatever else. So I'm going to say the ones that I also use the most. The easiest way to do that is to look at my template. My most used mix bus compressor is the Comp Diode by Arturia, which is an emulation of the Need 33609. The other plugin that I love is Slick EQ by TDR. It's an analog style EQ with a character that you won't find on any other EQ because it's not emulating things per se. It's like its own thing. And finally, in the creative side, I say Infiltrator. The effects it has are great, the compressor it offers is very heavy, and I'm very used to it. So when I want more crazy effects and sequences, I just use it and quickly set up something that I like. This question is fun and more difficult. Which plugins suck and how can they be improved? I haven't had experience of testing plugins that are snake oil, so instead of saying which ones suck, I think I can answer which ones are maybe overrated. And let's start with Digital Beat 3 by Brainworks. You will see many people using this because your favorite mixing engineer uses it. I mean, for instance, you will see this on Andrew Shep's template a lot all over the internet. And the thing is, this is not even the best EQ right now because the workflow that it has is very dated. Not only that reason, because Andrew Sheps and many others uses it, is for the stereo width control, which is something that you will find on many other Brainworks plugins. So you don't need this EQ for that. I have one plugin that I think it sucks. Synth GPT. This is not because we hate AI or whatever, it's because the execution is bad. This is my perception, but it's all about using the GPT as a marketing scheme. So people buy it thinking it's the new AI synthesizer, which will give you only sounds that any synthesizer can give you with presets. Now, other plugins that suck, well, I want to say Unison, but I honestly haven't even bothered to test them. Okay, next question asks me to say something about my secret identity. And boy, you're not ready for that. Maybe when we get 100,000 subscribers. Another interesting question is, why do you think Bitwig users don't collab on videos for YouTube content? And there are a couple of reasons on why. I mean, first of all, I didn't think that this was an issue, but now that you mention it, it may be true, and I think it has to do more with Bitwig being a niche, smaller niche, compared to Ableton or FL Studio, whatever else. Also, when I started making videos about Bitwig like 1 or 2 years ago, there were even less Bitwig YouTubers out there. I mean, we had Polarity and Teaches Touches. So the content creators that make videos about Bitwig are also just starting around, and it all depends if they are interested in making a collaboration and which kind of collaboration. So now that you're mentioning it, Polarity, if you're watching, let's make a collaboration for this specific viewer. Another question is, if you could have one superpower, what will it be and why? To know always what the client wants and needs, so they can always be happy the first time I give them something. What do I think about AI in the music industry? Your fears and hopes. I have a video about that in my channel. It's going to be here. And honestly, I'm not afraid of AI. I'm not worried about it. I mean, we have tools that are being developed with AI, which is great, as long as the human is the creative part of those processes. But about other things, I think only time will tell. I don't think AI will be able to make art, because it's not the same as working with someone. Now, I want to say that AI can be worrisome, but it's not AI per se, it's actually the industry which is developing AI. For instance, nowadays we have issues like the CEO of Spotify saying that music is content. So if he looks at music as content, maybe he will be happy to use AI music, I don't know. But it all depends on the listeners and how we shape the future of music industry. I think that human artists and music producers still have plenty job to do. What's one of your favorite songs in a genre that none of your viewers will expect you to listen to? I've been repeating that I love every type of music, so I'm not sure how can I impress you. But I think that maybe you don't expect me to listen to pop or rap. Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know. Applause and Judas by Lady Gaga are excellent songs, at least for me. Oh, other thing that I quite enjoy listening to is actually K-pop. I like a lot SHINee, one of the boy bands. And my favorite song from them is Sherlock. So I hope this answer satisfies the questions that you left for me. And again, if you want me to make another Q&A someday in the future, let me know in the comments so I can plan again one video like this for that. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time, and bye bye.